What up? What up? What up? What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Smooth Orator. Welcome to NWAP, Negroes with a Podcast. I am the host / moderator.
Tunde, I'm Tunde, Talk 7.
Wait, can we go back? Because first of all, Smooth Order, you always say I'm the host and moderator, but then you don't say your name.
I always say my name. I said it's Smooth Order, and then I say I'm the host / moderator.
I do have okay, we're going to fast forward. Lextopia here.
Negro Android, what's up?
And welcome to NWAP, Negroes with a Podcast. Today's episode is actually based on another, well, I won't say another episode. It's based on a report that, actually, before we even get into all that, how's everybody doing? Y'all good? Y'all straight?
I'm great.
Straight, man.
Yeah.
I feel like I had some new stuff that's happened recently, but now I don't remember anymore.
Must not have been
important. The weed.
I got the same. I stay off what?
Stay off the weed.
Man, I probably should.
Like that's it.
Oh, you know what? News for everybody who lives in LA. Well, I don't know if our listeners are in LA, but I am. And weed is recreational. Like you can just get it anywhere and smoke anywhere starting in January.
Welcome to the club.
Did y'all know that?
Oh, you live in what? Like y'all the most. Well, you're not. It's the most progressive state, like on paper.
I'm about to say, but also in Portland or wherever you live, like they're still gonna try to use this as an excuse to shoot you. So you still have to be careful. You can't just be outside
Smoking illegal joint, shoot him.
No, you can walk down the street smoking weed if you want in Portland.
Really?
Yeah,
really?
like
there's no
laws. Like recreational, medicinal, you can walk smoking anywhere.
You guys, my business plan is I want to make a weed food truck, because if you put a little weed infused in like food truck type foods, then they're gonna keep eating and keep eating and keep eating and keep eating. That's a good idea, right?
You want to be responsible for diabetes and the heavy weight gain in the Black community because you want to sprinkle weed in the food.
Yes. I got to get my bread up somehow, and then I bring it back into the system and into the healthcare and donate to Red Cross.
Nobody ever does that. Fucking FBI agent.
Well, everybody has the restaurant or something where they get money. Why can't I have that restaurant? All these white people are benefiting from the weed.
So basically, you're gonna
put this.
You want to be
like a white person.
You're gonna put this idea on the podcast.
Right.
Somebody's gonna take it.
Wow, this is crazy. Nobody's gonna take it because people don't really do anything, right? I've learned that about talking about ideas. Okay. Like, that's cool. I'm not gonna do it.
Conspiracy Does just wants to chime in and says, I've read things about McDonald's putting nicotine in their food to make it more addictive.
I mean,
it's no, that's not what makes it addictive. It really is like the fats and like the shit like that, like your body really gets addicted to. Like cheese is like low-key addictive too. I don't think it's fucking nicotine, Des.
I mean, if you've ever seen
frontal worker,
there was this report, and the report was like it was like some conspiracy shit, but it had the McDonald like styled as the Joker, and it was talking about food. No, it was crazy looking, right? But have you seen the movie What the Health?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So
man, y'all niggas watch one fucking health documentary.
They didn't even say nothing like that crazy, honestly, like that I didn't know, because I like read a lot about that stuff.
That's not conspiracy. That's on Netflix.
No, I know that, but you niggas watch one documentary and all of a sudden you niggas is fucking Dr. Gastronitis and shit.
There's this one girl on Twitter who decided to go vegan after watching that, and then like literally every day she says something about something she ate or what's vegan, and oh my gosh, this is so great. And it's like, sis, we don't got to hear that every day.
Damn.
Like y'all really changed. She really changed her life, but now it's like, all right.
Nah, I think
fuck vegan. Fuck vegan, Joe.
Yeah. It's not bad. I don't think it's bad. It's just I just do it from time to time.
Nah, fuck that.
Nah, I'm not going vegan, but I do think that there's a need for people to feel like they're to perform on stage when on social media. So any major life changes that they're going through, we all have to hear about. We have to hear about it repeatedly all the time. It's like, nigga, eat your fucking quinoa and shut the fuck up.
Being vegan is like a first world thing, because if you're starving, if you're starving and like you don't know where your next meal is coming from, you're not gonna be like,
Yeah.
I don't think they eat a lot of
Yeah.
meats in a lot of the regions where they have those issues, though, hunger issues and stuff. Like they're even in a lot of countries in the Middle East and in Africa, like they have more plant-based diets. Period.
What I'm saying, even in America,
We're the ones with all the processed shit.
even in America, if you're starving and you don't know where your next meal is coming from, you're gonna eat that burger.
Yeah, hell yeah, that 2 for $2 cheeseburger at McDonald's.
Exactly. That's what
ramen
I mean.
noodles, all kind of trash and salt. All you need is some salt and like some carbs.
Exactly. You're not gonna be like, does this have soy in it? I don't eat soy.
I've definitely been on that diet many a time.
So I guess everybody's doing fine since we talked about
Oh,
a
I
whole bunch of shit.
got my nipples re-pierced too. Just throwing that in there since I do a breast update every episode now.
Awesome.
What else have I done? I feel like I've done a lot of stuff.
You got your breast repairs too today?
Huh?
His stayed pierced.
You said also.
Well, you got
awesome.
you got the hoops this time?
No, I got the straight ones this time.
When are you getting yours, Garfield?
What am I getting? What? What am I doing? What?
When are you getting yours?
I feel like Des would do something like that, not Garfield.
No, that's why I asked him.
Yeah, no, I'm not doing that. That's okay. That's okay. Yeah. Anyway, so now that everybody's okay and everybody's nipples are okay, let's get into today's episode. So, I don't. If you listen to Code Switch, Code Switch is a for NPR, and they do a lot of kind of a lot of the same stuff that we do in terms of the conversations that we have about race and ethnicity and issues in America. Their last 4 episodes were dedicated to, and this is going to be the censor of the conversation today. Their last 4 episodes were dedicated to Ron Brown College Prep, which is an a majority black and brown or all black and brown high school in DC. So just a little bit of background on Ron Brown College Prep. All of the kids are black or brown. The school is a lottery school. They took in their first incoming class, which has 100 students. And one of the unique things about Ron Brown College Prep is that almost all of the teachers are black men. Statistically, black male teachers are about 2% in the entire country. That's how many black male teachers there have. So a lot of people go to school, and a lot of black and brown kids go to school, and they never see, or they only see one black male as a teacher. So the Code Switch reporting team followed the opening of Ron Brown College Prep for an entire year. And over the year, they had like thousands and thousands of hours of recording, which they distilled into 3 45 to 50-minute episodes. And they did like a 30-minute debrief on the last episode to sort of wrap it up or whatever. So I kind of wanted to talk about like some of the stuff that was going on and just the idea of black men or black males that go to school and in sort of not homogenous, because that means that they're all the same, but in a school that's basically set up for them to succeed. They have something called a care team on campus, which is basically people who sort of like work on the social development of the kids. They do something called restorative justice, where their goal is to not suspend kids, because they feel like, you know, if you can read any study and realize that the suspension rates for black kids are higher than they are for other kids. So they understand that black males, when they don't go to school, that's how they end up dropping out. So they use the restorative justice model to try to keep the kids in school. When they have problems, they do like a circle team. They do like a circle with the care team, and they address those problems head on. They take the kids to a different college campus like every month. They also do like they do trips. Like a lot of field trips. I think they do field trips like once a month too, or like once every quarter or something like that. And one of the episodes, the kids went to Morehouse. They went on a college tour. So they went to like a bunch of different colleges, and they went down to Morehouse. Towards the end of the year, they went to Peru, I think it was. So it's about the education, but it's also about developing these kids. And the problem with some of these kids with the majority of these kids almost all of them are testing and reading below grade level. They took towards the end of the episode, they had already taken like your standardized testing. They have 100 kids, or around about 100 kids. 11% was reading at grade level, which would be like 11 kids or 10 kids, and 2% were doing math at grade level, which would be like 2 kids. So a majority of the kids are stuck at first, second, third reading grade levels, but they're all in 9th grade now. And they're all going to pass because DC public schools passed the policy where if kids don't turn in any work, like if they get a homework assignment and they don't turn it in, instead of getting a 0, they get 50%. Because the logic there is that a 0 has such a negative effect on your grade that it takes forever for you to pull it back up. And they feel like they're trying to give kids a way to sort of try to keep up, even though they might not be doing the work. And then the other policy was that they only have to pass 1 quarter out of 4 to pass to the next grade. So if there's 4 quarters in a school semester, in a school year, if they fail the first, second, and third quarter, but pass the fourth quarter, they can get promoted to the next grade. So Ron Brown's basically trying to find a way to maneuver sort of like the DC public school system, but also trying to raise these kids up into greatness, basically. So with that very long intro, I just kind of wanted to give some context. I mean, it's a lot of stuff. I try to condense it as much as possible because it's a very, very good, but it's a very, very long podcast. I would encourage everybody to go ahead and listen to it. Again, that was Code Switch for NPR. But let's get some initial thoughts. Lex, go ahead.
Well, my first question, all of that is intentional, right? Like they came in with all of these different ways of doing things and kind of philosophies because of what? Like, have they seen this work somewhere else? Or, are these people like they have some kind of different background with like psychology or anything like that?
Well, no. So they basically, this is like the first school of its kind in DC, and if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure it's like the first of its kind, like in the country. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to find a way to address the problem of Black male education, particularly in DC, because they're a very vulnerable community in DC in terms of like the dropout rates and just the reading, like I said, the reading and the math levels and stuff like that. Like black male kids are just not. It's not a good situation for them in DC. So this school was built in order to sort of try to correct that path as best as it could.
I definitely understand the issues with it. I'm just wondering, how did this get passed? Because it's a public school, which means that DC is paying for it. So I just wonder, like, what do they show people, or what did they say to be like, you know what, let's try this whole different way? And they were like, okay, cool. Or maybe it's just that bad of a situation where they're like, let's try something. Because it seems like it's really just all based on everything being a positive reinforcement instead of about punishment, or instead of trying to find reasons to kick people out or trying to find reasons to hold people back. Which sounds like common sense, it makes sense. But I just wonder, like, had anybody already done this, or are there other predominantly white schools where they kind of do stuff like this? Because I see things where they talk about they're doing yoga in schools now, or meditation in schools now. And, everybody's trying all these new techniques, but I don't know. I think overall it sounds pretty cool, minus a couple things that you said that I'm like, I'm not sure about, but I'm sure we'll get to that.
Okay. All right, Tunde.
First, I want to answer Lex's question. Other schools are trying this exact approach. I think Ron Brown is unique in that it's in its majority Black and brown student population, and it's majority Black and male, and majority Black and brown male teachers. I think it's unique in that part. But the school I actually work at now, it's very similar to Ron Brown. It's a restorative justice school, but as people who listen to the podcast know, I live in Portland, and it's majority white. But the school I work at, I'm not gonna say its name. It's in East Portland, so it's more diverse. So the majority of the school students are male. I think it's like something like 70-30 male, boys to girls, and racially, it's pretty much evenly split across the board between Black, white, and Hispanic. So what I thought, I just resonated a lot with, some of the frustrations. I know there's some teachers who were against the non-suspension aspect of it. And I resonated with that as well, because sometimes I think suspension is necessary. So
suspension?
Yeah, because I know like they don't do suspension, they do like restorative justice and talking about it. But sometimes students need to go home.
I feel like those are the students who go home and then their parents aren't there, or they're just at home.
Listen,
not doing anything anyway.
If what you do, depending on what you do, like you can't have a student like bring a weapon to school and say,
that was actually one of they had 5 suspensions that year. That was one of the reasons why one of the kids got suspended. Was for bringing a knife to school. Yeah.
So I've had students bring knives to school this year already. And that was one of the reasons why students got suspended. So,
all right, Des?
I think that the issue that you see with the school, what's unique about it is that it is mostly men. I think having black men interface with younger black men is important, and it's not something that happens in often a designated positive setting in our society all the time. I do find that the way that restorative justice works, it doesn't always works in a setting where the background is already stable. If you suspend a student and his parents are home and nobody's disciplining him at home, that means he just gets more free time and gets to go kick it at the crib. If you do restorative justice and they have a family that cares about them and is going to come into the meetings, and that can't, not that their family doesn't care about them if they don't come, but maybe they work 3 jobs, maybe they can't make it to the meetings, it's not going to have as much of an effect. What I find to be more troubling and just a little bit more difficult to navigate with the DC school situation is that DC schools are in the situation where the bar for transition to the next grade is so low that we're setting these kids up. While we want to allow them the ability to, matriculate with their peers, the real world doesn't work like that. If you don't show up, and I've seen it with kids who've been in restorative justice settings and restorative justice schools, and when they get out into the real world, they collapse because the world doesn't allow you to cuss people out. It doesn't allow you to have a bad day and we're going to talk about it, we're going to mediate it. The world's not going to mediate with you. And I think that's the biggest problem that we're having, and we're doing a lot to fix a problem that is, we're putting a Band-Aid on a problem it's a larger scale problem. Black kids and brown kids in urban and very dense areas don't have access to the resources that white kids have. Just plain and simple. If you made those things, if they had healthy living environments, if they had supportive families and supportive neighborhoods, if they had a neighborhood or buildings that were conducive to learning, they would learn, they would succeed. But we don't provide them with that, and thus they fail and fall behind.
One of the things that I was kind of thinking about when I was listening to these episodes was, what exactly is the purpose of school? Right? And that's not an existential sort of question or one of those questions for the cosmos or anything like that. Like it's a very, very real concrete question, right? Like, what exactly is the point of school? Like, why do you go to school? What purpose do you go to school for? When we talk about stuff like, I remember one time I was on Twitter and people were talking about like not knowing about mortgages, not knowing about credit, not knowing how to buy a car, not knowing about return and interest on stocks and investments and bonds and shit. And it's like, like if you don't have an environment where you grew up in to learn that, is school a place that you would learn that? Like people teach you
never.
And I hate to make fun of this. Like people teach me, I learned algebra, geometry, and fucking algebra 2, right? I don't use any of that shit in real life, right? Like I know I need to know how to do percentages. I need to know how much taxes I'm gonna get back.
And that's what I don't know how to do. Like
right.
I could be in the store like 30% off, and I'm like I can't do that shit. But I can tell you about parabolas.
Yeah, like
fucking isosceles triangles.
Right. So, and I'm thinking isosceles.
That's hilarious.
Right. And then so I think about that, and I think about what Ron Brown is trying to do, and I feel like they're trying to solve a problem that I don't know that you can solve in school. Right. Like one of the things that they're talking about is that they don't call the students, they call them young kings, which
I hated that. That's the worst thing to me.
Yeah, I don't really, that really just.
Why? I don't know. Is it bad that Sometimes if it's too positive,
listen,
I don't fuck with it.
No. I don't think it's too positive. I think the idea of this kings and queens.
It's like trying too hard.
I think I just think it's like a really, really stupid idea in hindsight. Like in not in hindsight, but in its practice, because you shouldn't have to be super. The idea is that, or the idea that's been proffered is that Black people come from a lineage of kings and queens. And even dealing with what being a king and being a queen means, what that means for the people who aren't kings and queens, which is something that never really gets discussed, right? Because everybody's not a king and everybody's not a queen. So if you aren't either one of them and you're not in a royal court, you're probably fucking poor and you're probably at the mercy of either king or queen. So that's one. Two, it's like we ride and die on this narrative of always having to be superhuman in order to be seen as human. Like, why do we have to be kings and queens just to say
we as Black people?
Yes,
yeah, just to have some self-esteem, you got to call somebody a king.
Right, just as Black people, like, why do we have to be kings and queens and fucking superheroes and galaxy movers just so that we can be considered human? And I know why that is. What I'm saying is I don't agree with it. Like, I don't like what it.
I'll feel you.
I don't like what it infers, or no, I don't like what it implies. Go ahead, Des.
So I know for me, right? For 3 years I've worked as a dean, and now I worked as a behavior specialist, right? Like, that's one of the services that I provide. And one of the things that I know for me in my personal life, my homeboys, my homegirls, my friends, what's up, nigga? I hit you with the nigga real quick. I'm from Florida. That's how I was raised. That's how I talk. Whenever I was in school, I talked to all of my kids. I call them brother. I call them sister. I don't call them king and queen, but it's a way to invoke. This is the familiarity that I'm trying to bring to you. And I tell them, hey, I love you. I don't love some of the things that you do. And like, because the world isn't fair and the world treats Black people unfairly. We have to do some.
You got to hype them up.
Like,
got to gas
embracing. You got to do some embracing, because it's hard to tell a kid. I had a kid who couldn't come to school at the regular time that school started because our neighborhood was in the neighborhood where his brother killed somebody. So if he would have come to school when all the other kids was going to school, he would have got killed. The one day he did come to school early, he graduated last year. He did come to school, he got shot.
Jesus Christ.
He came early to take an exam. But we had it set up so that he could come at a later time and stay later to do his work. And then we walk him to the train station. But that's the type of situation that some of our kids deal with.
You need to transfer.
He wouldn't be. No other schools would accept him. That's why he went to my school. But he is one of those kids that this other, like, just being the norm, doing the norm, is not going to work for him, because I'm worried about dudes shooting me when I come to school. It's very hard to impress upon him the importance of Shakespeare.
Tunde.
I wanted to go back about when you talked about the school having more or mostly men, or mostly Black men as teachers. So it made me think about something. The high school I went to was about 91% Black, and I had maybe 50 to 60% of my teachers were Black men, which I realized it wasn't until I got on Twitter as an adult that I realized that was an anomaly. Like my basketball coach was my AP calculus teacher. So then I look at the school that I'm at now, and I realize I'm the only Black male teacher. I mean, we have a Black principal and I think a Black tutor. That's about it. And that's one of the things I think is actually pretty dope about Ron Brown, is like to see people like you who are educated and actually care about your well-being. I think that does a lot for students' self-esteem, and not calling them kings. To be honest, I don't know that will actually boost their self-esteem.
Do you feel like you have more responsibility as like the only Black teacher, male teacher?
Yeah. I don't know if we're gonna. I don't know if
Or like, do
interpret
you monitor yourself, like like try to say things certain ways or not say certain things, or?
Okay. So as being the only black teacher, and not the only black male teacher, the only black teacher, uh, it's so I have one. I have a lot of kids who aren't black who feel comfortable using the word nigger, and like
A lot of friends?
they're
No,
comfortable.
that's a generational thing. These young kids, they let everybody say it.
Yeah, they don't. That is true.
Nah, fuck that. I'm not part of that generation.
Kids.
So
No, I'm not saying you are. I'm just saying amongst
yeah,
them,
yeah,
that's accepted.
yeah. But still, no. So I started the BSU at our school. Which is a lot of our students have issues around, especially living in Portland, they have issues around their black identity. So I thought that would be something that would be pretty important. And lastly, we have these things called reflection sheets, right? Like when a student does something like when a student does something that's not classroom ready behavior, we give them a reflection sheet. We have our students are split into cohorts. Each grade has a different one or two cohorts, right? And they go with their class to each they stay with their cohort and go to different classes throughout the day, right? So each cohort has what's called an AC coach or AmeriCourse member, and they're responsible for like doing these reflection sheets or keeping what we call data, like how much time they spend out of class to like reflect on what they've done or whatever, right? So I found that a lot of our black students get the majority of the reflection sheets, even though a lot of white students exhibit the same behaviors. So like that's something that I've been pushing for. Like if you see like a lot of these white students fly under the radar, even though they have problem behaviors. So
It's just shielded by whiteness.
yeah, exactly. And it's not even that this, because when I say I'm the only black teacher, I'm not the only teacher of color, because we have a lot of Hispanic teachers as well. So as a black teacher, something that I've been pushing for equal representation, because if a black student does it and gets a reflection sheet, then a white student should also get a reflection sheet.
But everybody at your school is there because they got sent there?
Okay, so for
or
our
they
school,
choose to go, or like it's an area school?
no, it's not. It's not an area school. So our school is right now. It's a 7 through 12 school, and it's in its third year of existence. So right now the highest grade we have right now is 10th graders. So we get referred. Our students get referred to. It's 3 reasons what they get referred to. One, they missed over 80% of their 80% non-attendance.
Damn.
Yeah, or they're reading at least two grade levels below. I mean, the two grade levels below for reading and or math, and the last is like behavior issues. So if you check 2 of those categories, your home school can refer you to our school. So a lot of our students are referrals for those reasons, or a parent can actually like pull them out for other reasons. Like I have 2 students who are pulled out because they're black students, and you know their mom pulled them out because they were dealing with like a lot of racism issues in their homeschool.
Okay, so even though there's white students, they have behavioral problems too. And that's how I wonder, because when I was in New Orleans a few days ago, one of my friends, his brother, who's a black male in his 40s, he works at a school like that. We were over there, and this one white girl got dropped off at the school, and he was like, ooh, nobody messes with her, because for her to be like a white girl at this school with everybody's like mostly black males, they were like, she's like one of them, bring a gun to school and like, or slang like the craziest pills, like do the most just for her to be there. So I was like, oh, what did she do? But he was like, yeah, nobody even messes with you. Like if you're a white person at that school, he was like, nah, because they know you're gonna go off on some other stuff.
Whew. That's heavy shit. That's heavy shit. We was talking. I felt like we was talking about something else, and we somehow ended up on restorative justice anyway, right?
Well,
We're talking
can I
about
want to go back because I want to pull a Des on this whole school not being necessary because
I don't think he said school wasn't necessary.
no, I'm saying no, I want to pull a Des and say that school is not necessary, or why do we go to school? You're asking that,
right? Like what's
the reasons? Because it's not really teaching you life shit, really. Or maybe they think they are.
What function does school serve now? I mean, we worked so hard to integrate into schools. We fought, we marched, we died, we voted. Niggas went to school
because you need education. Right? I think the main thing is that we need to know the same information that they know. However, just like with different systems, the police system, this system, that system, judicial, whatever, I feel like it's still education in this country is still like trying to fit into a system. And like the point of it is, I don't want to say them brainwashing you, but the point of school is just them telling you like what to think. Like think about how much shit has even changed. Like niggas don't fucking know anything. Scientists and everybody in every science class, all that shit has changed. Like Pluto's not a fucking planet no more. I'm like, I thought about that shit. I'm for real. And like everything keeps changing anyway. So what the fuck are y'all teaching us that shit for anyway? But like basically they're just teaching you what to think, but not how to think. And I think that's the biggest thing that's missing out of schools. They're not teaching you to think out of the box. They're not teaching you how to think about anything. It's just, here's some information, learn it to get ahead or to go to the next shit to learn some other shit you don't need. And it's like, I went through 12 years of school, then 4 years of college where I had to do some shit that I didn't care about just for me to really figure out what I really, really care about and go to grad school. And one semester in grad school is harder to me than anything I'd ever done before, like all that other schooling. So I'm like, if I could have just did some life shit to really figure out what I liked, or if we had different kind of conversations about what I like, because I really figured that out from having a conversation with somebody and they pointed out like, yo, you're really into this. Like maybe that's what you should mix with this, connect the dots, boom, boom, boom. And that's why, oh, okay, intercultural communication is what I really care about. And now it's different because I'm in school actually just taking classes I care about. I'm not taking, 1894 English, reading Shakespeare and stuff like that, because that doesn't, I mean, I might do that anyway, and I do stuff like that anyway, but you don't have to. And that's such a waste of money outside of just networking and shit when you talk about college level. But that whole kindergarten and 12th grade, like, for what?
Yeah, but I think one of the interesting things when you talk about school is that everybody is working so hard to give their kids an advantage like earlier and earlier in the process, right? They're talking about if your kid doesn't do like VPK, by the time they get to like second grade, it might be over for them. So
it's still like reasons where people still can be ahead of you because they can pay for the extra tutors. All these white kids in the neighborhood I used to live in, they all have tutors. They all do all these extra shit, go to these extra classes. They can pay for the AP shit and like whatever else you need.
Yeah, it's a lot.
And it keeps the bar keeps rising crazy too. Like the stuff these kids are doing at younger ages now.
Yeah, and I mean pretty soon at some point, like
you can't get a job now just because you have a college degree.
Gonna talk about school. Gonna talk about school segregation, but I kind of feel like maybe I should wait a little bit for that. Tunde.
I think that school is necessary. One.
Wait. Come on. Wait. I didn't say school wasn't necessary.
He was saying like, what's the real purpose? I think the real purpose is to have you like adjust it for the system is what I think the purpose is.
Let me just back up for a second, right? When I was talking about what the purpose of school was, or like, why do we go to school? I wasn't asking that in a sense of like, why do we still send our children to school? I think that kids should go to school. The question that I was posing was more so, what role does school serve, particularly for Black kids who are A, suspended more than anybody else, B, more likely to fall behind than anybody else, C, are already falling behind more than everybody else? You got a school like Ron Brown College Prep where you have ninth graders reading at a first and second grade level. Like, what is happening between first grade and ninth grade where you're 8th grade levels behind in reading?
Because you're getting in trouble so much at a young age and you being sent out or put in the corner and whatever other kind of like punishments just spirals into you being like, well, fuck this shit. And it keeps spiraling and spiraling, I think, from how you're dealt with when you first start. Just like kids who have to go to juvie or some shit, like they're the rest of their life is just totally different because of those things, or getting in trouble or whatever.
All right, Tunde, now that you actually know what I said, like you can work from that.
Fuck school.
My bad. I think that you're saying what happens between 1st and 9th grade when like they're actually falling behind. I think that a lot of it has to do with.
I know what happened. I didn't mean that that was more like a rhetorical thing. Like what's happening? Like I know what's happening, but just go ahead.
Yeah. So I don't know if there is a quick fix, like to the answer. Like I mean, I think schools like Ron Brown or the school I work at is a step in the right direction, but as long as because we know that like the reason that it's like that, yeah, the community is fucked up. The reason why you don't like the parents can't get you tutors is because like they can't get jobs because of fucking there's systematic oppression or ways to keep you out of getting like the jobs that are necessary for you to make the money to get the kids the better education. The school system that they're in the first place are fucked up. The teachers aren't getting paid enough. So it's like, I feel like schools like this are kind of putting a Band-Aid on the problem when what you need is like surgery. And I don't know if there's a quick fix to it.
But maybe you keep saying putting a Band-Aid on it, but maybe if these children, if it shows that they are liking school more, are more into getting education, or are doing better in school, now they somehow like are the ones who can kind of start changing things for the ones behind them.
Okay, but how many schools like Ron Brown? How many schools like Ron Brown have you heard about? Versus how many
in Chicago with the kids with the little tie?
Tons.
That's versus how many kids that need it. There's not enough.
Right. So this is what.
So you want more Band-Aids, or are you saying it works, but we just need more?
No. What he's saying
is it?
Wait.
Let me jump in.
Go ahead. Just take your time.
I just want to say
before we get hype.
What Tunde is saying is that they need surgery, and Tunde is saying we need surgery because it's not the schools that's sick. The schools that are sick, that's a symptom of a society that is sick.
Exactly.
Our society is not even sick. Our society, it's like if we were all the human race, one body, we looked at this black part of our body and we've just been like, I'm going to neglect it. I'm going to stick it in the freezer. I'm going to isolate it. I'm not going to give it the nutrient it needs. That's what's happened. And it's atrophied to the point that in all places where you have large, like black centers, you see this decrepit and failing school system. If you look, I mean, it goes down to things from the building, right? Mm-hmm. My building, my old school is a co-located building, multiple schools in the building. I go out to Queens, there are schools that have these giant windows, upstairs and downstairs, gymnasium that's shared, but it's also overlooks the field. That type of stuff inspires you. You look out of a window, you have imagination, you imagine things, because when you look out a window and all you see is the rusting train station, it's not going to imagine you. In fact, it's going to confine you. And that's a symptom of society having black people put into these poor communities, redlining, and how that feeds into the education system. To what you said about, well, school is irrelevant. We don't teach kids how to think. We teach them what to think. The thing is, people used to have to make connected, like neural connective actions, where you would look up something in the Dewey Decimal System, then you would find the card, then go find the book. Find that book, you'd read through the book that you need, and then you'd be able to put that, you source it in your paper, and you'd be able to make these deep insights because you've read a little bit of background to get to the point that you really needed. Now in technology, it's advanced so far that we can just look up a quote. I don't need all this. I don't have this wealth of knowledge. I'm like an inch wide and a mile deep in this one thing. And that's how you see it moving in jobs, because our kids, because they don't have the same access to technology, can't get the jobs of the future, because the jobs of the future don't often require you to go to college. They need a portfolio. If you know how to code, if you speak a certain language, they need a portfolio. So this making school irrelevant. We're making kids take standardized tests that have been set up in the state. That's how the state determines how funds are going to be divvied out. And so our kids are taught towards tests, and they're not taught how to think. So
those tests suck.
Yeah, that's all. I just want to address those points.
Yeah, I read a lot of Nicole Hannah-Jones's work, and if you don't know, she's a writer for the New York Times, and she sort of specializes in writing about school segregation in America. And if you read any of her work, you would realize that school segregation is very much alive and well in the United States. And even though Brown versus Board of Education passed like 50, 60 years ago, like people are basically still finding a way to segregate schools. And one of the ways that they segregate schools is that white people will take their kids out of schools where black kids go to and send their kids elsewhere into more quote unquote affluent schools. And then like what Des was actually just talking about, the way that the funding works is if your school hits a certain percentage, then the state will fund the money towards that school. So you can imagine a situation where, say, school A has 95% white kids and 5% black kids, black and brown kids. And then maybe a law comes out and it says, okay, well, that school has too many white kids, so we need to balance it out a little bit more. We need to send more black and brown kids there. So they send an additional 15%. So now it's 80% white and 20% black. And the white parents will look around like, there's too many black kids here, and we'll start pulling the white kids out of school. And then to make up for the missing numbers, they'll send more black or people of color kids there. And since we're already behind in education, the school's test scores will go down, which means that white people will continue to pull those kids out of the school, and the state will send less funds to that school. So now you might have an A school, but all these black kids that went there that are behind educationally are not being counterbalanced by all the white kids that used to be there, because all the white kids got pulled out of school to go to other school districts where there's a lot of white kids. So then that school just goes to shit. And it's like, you can't even, based on what Jones was saying, is like the I don't want to say the government, because it's not exactly the word. It's like the structure, the political structure of how they structure these schools, is that they've seen on a number of levels that integration, like actual integration of students, like white students, black students, people from all, socioeconomic, like if you put all these kids into a school, that actually works. Like it's better for everybody, right? But white people don't keep their kids in school long enough for that shit to actually work out. They always find some sort of loophole, some sort of way to sort of like keep it to only a certain amount of black kids that can get access to those resources. So when I think about a school like Ron Brown College Prep, and then people are talking about like these test scores and stuff like that, I'm just kind of like, this is intentionally done, right? Yep. Like the way that the school system is set up is intentionally done to make sure that only a certain amount of people are able to get that education. The way that these power structures are set up, it's only meant for people, and those people generally are not black, to succeed in this school thing. Even when you're talking about what Des is just talking about, tech and coding and stuff like that. Like people that get rich in tech aren't coding, right? Like that's not their job. That's somebody else's job. Like the coders are like the fast food retail workers, right, of tech companies. So I just read this thing where they were talking about some prison in California that was like teaching like some women's prison in California, I believe it was, that was teaching them how to code so they can get tech jobs. Yeah, tech jobs they're basically customer service agents, right? Like it's like the same level of the same level of the industry. So it's like, even when you think we're making progress, we're not making progress because the goalposts are always moving. I read another. The game is rigged. I read another study that they were saying that people with college degree, like employers are not looking so much for people with college degrees, not looking for people that went to trade schools. And it's like, yeah, now you are, because when black people was majority going to trade schools because they couldn't go to college, you made a college degree the requirement for everything. So we was like, all right, well, we're going to go to college so that we can get these opportunities. And now you're like, actually, we need people to go to trade schools now.
Just say you don't want to hire black people.
No, they can't do that.
No, but they are doing that.
But that's what I'm saying. That's what they're saying.
That's my point.
Yeah,
that's my point. They are doing that. You have to have a certain score to go to this school. You have to have a certain score to be able to get money from the government to keep this school open. We're not going to pay teachers that live in or that work in these high poverty, high urban areas, because we have to justify the cost by seeing how much the test scores go up. Like all of this shit is like, created to keep this caste system in place? Des.
So that this whole shit, like it shows you this white supremacy is really evil. It's like we're gonna kill this. We're trying to do everything in our power to kill and destroy this one group of people. But to go back to what you said earlier, Smooth Orator, that's why you have to encourage you. I'm not saying call them kings and queens, but that's why you got to tell them, like, you got to be galaxy movers, because the galaxy is working against you. The galaxy, the world as it stands, is literally working against you, young black man. You up, I have to get you ready. Young black women, you're gonna have to deal with not just the galaxy, you're gonna have to deal with these niggas, young black men, who gonna do some crazy shit to you. So we have to coach them up. That's why you have to, like, I know that shit is played to say you got to work twice as hard to get half as far. I know that shit is played out, but it's true.
It's also
It's true, but do you think that do you think that the education system as is a bunch of people saying, what can we do to keep black people from not being smart, to keep them out? Or is it that really they're doing the things that they have to do to make the most money, and that is detriment, like that does not align? You know what I mean? Like these schools want more white people because they need their scores to be certain things to get funding. And it's just that just does not mix with black people and where they are now, as far as they do have a harder time. They do have more community issues and whatever is holding them back academically, and they're not a good investment. Like black people aren't a good investment. And so instead of them investing in it and losing to invest, they're still just trying to get as much money as they can, which means we get pushed aside.
The root of capitalism in this country is slavery. So everything that has grown from that is growing in the oppression or the disadvantage of black people.
Get money is still it's automatically partnered with,
because capitalism is built on having outsiders. In America, black people came in and we were not low wage labor, we were free labor. We are the built-in outsiders. So if the country is still operating off of this capitalism model, you can say, I'm not doing this against black people, I'm doing this to pursue capitalism. That still disproportionately hurts black people. Yeah.
Until we're equal, it's always hand in hand.
Right, but you even got to think about what you just said, that black people aren't a good investment. We're talking about education.
Which is supposed to be for everybody.
I'm not saying like I agree. I'm just saying like that's how it looks.
I'm not saying I'm not saying that you agree. I'm just saying that even having to have a conversation like this regarding something like the education of our children is a problem, right? Like these aren't numbers and statistics and permutations in math. These are kids. These are people. These are people that you are trying to train to become productive members of society, and you're politicizing and monetizing that education in terms of what benefits your pockets as opposed to what benefits their education. Tunde.
Listen, if these white people can monetize war, monetize prison,
they monetize.
They all monetize education. They don't give a fuck about us.
Right. No, I'm wholeheartedly
That's
agree
what we're
with you.
saying. Everything really is about money. But for things to be about money means it's anti-black.
That's a disproportionately effect. Yeah.
All right. That was another intense section. So I wanna move on to the next question. I hear an echo. Oh, okay, whatever. So Ron Brown College Prep, right? They've got a care team of people who help socially develop the students. They kind of split their time between doing academics and doing like a social nurturing to get black male students up to sort of like deal with the real world and stuff like that. They go on college tours. They have to wear uniforms. The teachers call them young kings. They're all black male students. They have black male teachers, all this stuff. Would y'all send y'all kids there?
Sure, why not?
No. I mean, if my kid fit the criteria of kids that they're looking for, then sure.
Oh, it's a lottery school. There's no criteria.
What does lottery school mean? I don't know what that means.
Basically, it's kind of like you don't choose to go there, they choose you to come there. It's based on like a number of factors or whatever like that, and they pick like the students they want to go on there.
So it's based on a number of factors, right?
Yeah.
So if my kid,
Are you saying?
Let's say my kid was reading below grade level and had behavior issues, then sure, I would definitely love for my kid to go there.
But if not,
then no.
Des?
Like, hold on.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
So let's say I had a son and his grade point average was like a 3.9, and he was off the charts in all like his testing scores and well behaved, and I wouldn't want him to go there. I'm sorry. Like, I want our community.
He could be a positive example for other young kings tuned in.
Great. That's all great, but then it also worked the other way. They could be
not if you're a good father.
No. And then so I don't. It could also go the other way. They could be a bad influence on him. So I wouldn't be willing to take that chance. Like at the end of the day, on an individual level, I would want my kid to do well.
Or just the idea of knowing you go to this school. I wonder if the kids take pride in it, or if they know, like, hey, this is a school I'm in because I'm fucking up. You know what I mean? Like, do you feel like cool or proud to say you go to this school? Or is that what they're trying to do? Is they're trying to make it like, yo, this is a great place for you. You love this place, and yeah, you are proud to come here. Like, people want to come here. Because now I wouldn't want to send my kid if it was like, yo, you're going to this behavioral school.
It's not a behavioral school.
Right. So can I hold on? I want to
restorative.
No, listen, wait. It's not a behavioral school. Mm-hmm. It's a college preparatory academy. It's a regular ass high school that is designed.
Oh, let me say this.
Just because it has college prep in the name.
Exactly. Because the school I go to, the school I work at, is also a college prep school. And it's an alternative college prep school, right? The school I work at. And
the school is not an alternative college prep school. It's not.
Okay. Listen.
You just said all the students that go there have a lower
all I'm saying is
reading levels and things like that.
You can put that.
Wait, time out. That's any school. Like you can pick any random school in America, and you're gonna find black kids that are reading and
right. But I thought you were saying this is a school where they would specifically go to address those issues.
No, that's not what I said.
Okay.
All right, hold on. Can I answer the question?
No, let Tunde finish and then you can answer the question.
Wait, Tunde finished.
No, I didn't.
I didn't think he was finished.
Oh, my bad.
The last thing I wanted to say is, just because you put college prep in the title of a school,
no, I get that.
Doesn't mean that they're actually doing college prep work. And if that might be the goal, but that doesn't the goal doesn't always meet reality.
Okay,
that's all I want to say.
Des?
So I would want where hopefully we lived. Like I want my kids to go to their zone school because that means they're around kids that are in their neighborhood, and hopefully I live in a good, affluent and diverse neighborhood. That's my hope. I don't want my kids to go to private school. Private schools, because they tend to have wealthier kids, have access to not
opiates.
They have more access to drugs. Like black kids in my they smoke weed. They might do Xanax. They might pop some out. White kids are they're doing LSD again. They're doing heroin. Like black kids ain't doing that. Black kids is like, nah, I'm not fucking with that because the margin for error is so small. But I also wanted to say with schools that are like my school, my old school, it was a school that was a behavioral school. It was a last chance school because no other schools would accept them. So it doesn't make for a place of pride. It doesn't make for a place because you're here because you messed up somewhere else. And this is the only place that'll take you. I had 250 kids enrolled, 120 that showed up regularly. 90 of them had court mandated programming of some sort. So I was constantly meeting with parole officers 4 days out of the week. I would meet with parole officers of the court, social service agent members. That was a big part of my job. That doesn't necessarily foster school spirit like you would in a traditional high school. But what I think you have to do is have a staff that's in that and that's dedicated to working in that. And I think what they got going on around Brown is an attempt to do that, but you got to have a mix, right? You got to have a mix that is high achieving kids and low achieving kids, but that they see each other and that they cross mingle with one another so that they can say like, hey man, why don't you just come do this shit with me? Because no matter what we try to do as adults, as educators, we're never going to have as much influence as their peers. And if they see their peers on the ball and on that shit, they're going to do it.
That's why that school in Chicago was air quotes successful, because they had a show. There was social proof involved where they had a show that if you passed whatever test or something, got into college, then your tie was a different color or something like that. Like shit like that matters because niggas don't want to be the only one,
Right.
you know, whose shit's not right. So when you have a certain type of social proof like that too, and it's within the kids and not a teacher calling you out or praising you or putting you on a pedestal,
Right.
that makes sense too. But even with this Ron Brown school, the whole tuck your shirt in and king stuff, like the appearance, I think it's kind of like they're trying to also put in like this feeling of discipline, which I don't know. It's like
Some of our kids
we
need
talk
that.
about respectability stuff and how it's like, oh, we don't, you know, you should be able to sag and that shouldn't matter. But at the same time too, I think that discipline does make for less issues when people come to school in a uniform or they all have their shit tucked in or whatever. I don't know how I feel about that.
Chicago school.
I think a
Can
lot
I
of this stuff, I
respond to
get
that?
the idea, but I don't know if you're teaching the right things.
So Lexi, I think the work that you have to do, right? It shouldn't matter. And I do never enforce respectability politics on a kid. But what I tell my young people is it shouldn't matter what you wear. It should
But
not
it
matter how
does.
you dress. But I'm trying to equip you because I'm going to make sure that you're the smartest. I'm going to make sure that you're the best one there at any job interview or at anything that you go to. But I'm trying to equip you for the racism that you're going to deal with, even when you are dressed appropriately. Because that's what a lot of our kids are not ready for. A lot of our kids know, all right, man, I'll sag my pants because that's how we dress. But they'll straighten up when they go to a job. Bullshit like, man, they didn't even like me as soon as I walked through the door. They don't know how to deal with that. And most of us as adults don't know how to deal with that because the world is just fucked up and biased against black people. And that's what that's what you got to try to prepare them for. And I think instilling discipline allows them to control their reactions to that because you can smell bullshit. And we all agree, like all of us have had to put on the quote unquote monkey suit. Like we all go to work. Like I've worked in places where I was the only black person.
Not the monkey suit.
You know they call it. Wait, is that you call it y'all don't call it the monkey suit?
I've never heard that, but it's funny.
Yeah, I said.
I know exactly what you mean, though. So I mean, that says something.
Because I put on hi. Yeah, my name is Desmond.
That
You call me
Desmond.
You said Desmond. The whole you can hear every letter
With
in
an
that nigga's
accent.
name. Desmond. Nigga,
But-
put an
I mean,
asterisk
that's the
over
problem,
name.
right? That like for us, schooling and education is how to deal with racism without
Like, how to
letting that
survive
shit
in
get to you. So it's so fucking, it's so fucked up, right? Like we need another school,
It's
we need a
fucked up.
class just for that
Reality.
shit. And then how does
It's reality.
that make things better if we're always just teaching each other and teaching our kids how to maneuver in this world and like how
Instead
do
of
you
fighting
try
against
to
it,
maneuver,
change it.
but also trying to change it, also trying to be really who you are authentically. Like that's a lot of fucking work. Black
Yeah, why you
people
think
fucking
niggas be having
exhausted.
a lot of mental stress? Like black people, we have to be appropriate to black people, and we're the only people that got to do that. Like we, no matter where we are, it's like I gotta still be able to. My homies can still fuck with me.
We gotta always be
Also,
able to switch up.
White people don't be too uncomfortable with me. I still want your dollars because the capitalist system is built off of white supremacy. Anyway, I'm not gonna get into that.
Oh, the original question: would you send your kid to Ron Brown College Prep?
Yeah. I said if that's where I lived and I was zoned, I want my kids to go wherever we're zoned. Because then the onus is on me to get us somewhere where it's a nice school. And if Ron Brown Prep is the school that we at where we zone, or if that's the lottery we choose to enter, okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm like indifferent about it, I guess.
I don't want my kids to go to the high school I went to when I went there.
Where'd you go again?
I went to BA
Yeah,
in
no.
the early 2000s. Like I don't want my kids to go to my high school because
That's a
my
nigga.
kids are gonna be softer than me. So
I went to Coconut Creek just so I didn't have to go to BA. So that should tell you.
right.
Tell
And
you.
here's the thing. You live in Lakes. I lived in Lauderhill. And I went, them niggas was not funny. It was like, you a Lauderhill nigga, we gonna kill you. Like
Wow.
So listen,
No,
so just
Florida is
just
like
for
that, man. Like,
listen, so just for context, because people don't know what the fuck we're talking about. Boyd BA is Boyd Anderson High School, which is a school that's in the Fort Lauderdale area that me and Des grew up in, right? So where Des used to live, Des probably lives he lived in what's called Lauderhill, which is
it's not even that far from you. It's
not that far, but
it's
Des
separated.
lives further away. Des lives further away from Boyd Anderson than I did. I went to a school that was clear across fucking town.
Yeah.
So that I didn't have to go to Boyd Anderson High School. Like I lived closer to the school and I went somewhere else. We used my I think I used my aunt's address or something, or one of my cousin's address, so I can ride the city bus to school. So I wouldn't go to Boyd Anderson because Boyd Anderson is a piece of shit.
That was a wild school. Niggas getting shot, niggas getting stabbed. Like that's how it was.
Yeah, nobody should have to go to school there.
I don't
as far
want
as
to go to that.
as far as sending my kids to Ron Brown, I don't know. I don't know. There was a woman who her son was at Ron Brown, and she pulled him out. And the reporters asked her, "Why did you pull your son out?" And she said, I think the school works for some kids, but I'm middle class.
Ooh.
So my son, he doesn't understand like what's happening. He doesn't understand like why the kids fight.
Like why do y'all need this extra shit?
Right. He doesn't understand why they need like all this extra attention and stuff like that. She's like, I do think the school is of value. And I do think this school ultimately will be able to help a lot of kids, but it's not the right place for my son.
That's fair.
It is fair. And I was sort of thinking about it and I was like, I don't know. But
it's also understands like that is the real world though, right? But maybe as a young child or as a kid that shouldn't have to be your focus yet, maybe.
I don't know. I don't think I would
know a lot of this shit till later. You know what I mean? Looking back at it or whatever.
I think I wouldn't want my kid to go to Ron Brown mostly because I'm just not cool with the whole Young Kings /
You really hate that Young King shit.
Yeah, I really don't like that shit.
It's a Young King episode.
But like, wait, I just missed it. What happened?
I said this is gonna be the Young King episode.
yeah, the Young King. Right. Yeah, I don't have a problem. I don't think talking our kids up is the problem. Like, how we talk our kids up is also of importance to me. But I just don't know because they do a lot of good things also that I think that my kids should want to be a part of. But like, I don't know if they do anything that I wouldn't have been in that regard. I don't know if they do anything that I couldn't have done or that I wouldn't do.
That you couldn't teach them or work with them
on? I couldn't teach them on my own, but I am very, very supportive of the idea of my child going to school with kids that look like them. I'm very, very supportive of that. And from a variety of economic backgrounds, because I don't want there's a really good chance that my child is going to have middle-class parents. And one of his parents is firmly middle class, and one of his parents would be newly inducted into middle class. And I would need, that would be me. I would be newly inducted into middle class by that point. And I feel like for my children, I would need them to see the sort of situation that their father grew up in and how I was able to navigate all of these different things. But I don't know if they need to do that in school.
Right, like you want to be the one to form that for them.
Yeah,
not
I don't know, but
letting them see that in some grown ass people. You don't know for real what they really think and who they are.
Not necessarily in the grown ass people, but like I just need them to go to school. I need my kids to go to school with other black kids and not just other yuppie ass bougie black kids. Like I need some hood black kids to be there too.
And like your kids' beliefs shouldn't never just be as a result of their teachers. Like hopefully,
Right.
So.
And well, I guess since we've been talking about this for a while, I guess we'll end it with this conversation. And I don't know who Tunde, did you write this or did Lex write this?
Oh, me.
All right. So can you explain what this is? I don't know.
Sure. As we were speaking earlier, I think it was Top 7 who said that at his school, it was X% male. And we were talking about how you know, a lot of the male issues. I remember when I read something on Ron Brown, they were talking about how, you know, here we don't do the whole men don't cry thing. We try to encourage, you know, emotion, and we try to encourage, you know, conversation, dialogue, things like that. And it just got me to thinking that, you know, the statistics, which I don't have, but, and if somebody has them, they can correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems as though this is a male, mostly a Black male issue as far as kids having issues in school, and just kind of wondering about what it is that makes it that males get into trouble so much, or that the males have issue with, you know, their academics or whatever, and having these issues in school more than the women, what that's a result of, and maybe like how that can be changed without it just being like, oh, we have to have all these male schools and we have to have, you know, a million more Black male teachers. Like, what is the issue? Why don't girls get in trouble?
Well, they do. I don't think that. I don't think
At
they
the
don't.
same rates, you think?
Not the same rates. I think that.
But they do. You're right, because I know some bad black kids.
I don't even think they're bad. I think that, one, Black girls are disciplined or get in trouble at a higher rate than white girls, and Black boys are disciplined also and get a higher rate, get in trouble at a higher rate than everyone else. And that's simply because of, I think a lot of it has to do with teacher bias as well.
Yep.
Like I said earlier, I think before we started recording.
Yeah.
It's easier, or if a teacher has a bias and they see like, if a white student, let's say a white boy and a Black boy in the same class exhibit the same type of behavior, right? I think like subconsciously a white teacher might be like, oh, I'm gonna discipline this Black boy, send him to the principal's office, while letting the same behavior in a white boy slide.
So you're saying it's like the same way as like the criminal justice system here, where it's just a matter of it's still happening at the same rates, but because from the beginning,
like different
singled out, then it just spirals from there.
There have been studies on this. Yeah, so I think that's also where having Black teachers helps a lot, because they can, like a teacher can, like me, I can see myself in some of these Black students. So
it's like males in general too.
I'm more empathetic.
Even if we take the race out, Black and white males, like it's the males who always are so much more violent and like with crime and things like that. And it's just like, how do you change like how men and women are socialized? Like, how does that change? I guess just from parents. And maybe if these teachers are talking about having these approaches where you talk more and more open, maybe that helps too. But it's just really interesting to me.
That's another thing. Teaching a child is 360 degrees. Like, you can't just expect a teacher to do everything. Like, a lot of it has to be reinforced at home.
Right. And that's a function of society too.
Yeah.
It's hard for some families to enforce.
It is hard. It is hard.
Yeah, that's why this whole thing is frustrating, because everything's such a cycle, right? Like, no matter where you get information or learn something or try to improve, there's some shit that's pulling you back on some other part of this circle or part of your life.
So for instance, I heard an echo, but I have a student who we have a policy called a 10-day, right? So if you're absent 10 days in a row, our school has the option. Yeah, in a row. Your school has an option.
What are these kids doing?
Not going to school. So your school.
No, you'd be surprised.
Yeah, our school has the option to drop you then, right?
I used to like going
to to come back to school, you have to re-enroll. So students know how to like game the system. What they'll do is they'll miss 9 days in a row,
and then come on the
10th for like a half day, and then skip and walk out, right, for attendance. So I have a student who does this. As a matter of fact, she'll lapse the 10 days and just like fuck it, right? So like I have a meeting, like I had a meeting with like her dad, and like it's a single dad, and I think he has like 3 girls or 2 girls, whatever. And like he works like he like does construction, so he works like he goes to work before the students get up and go to school, and he comes home after they get home from school. So he doesn't know like if they're going to school or not. No. And so I can see how it would be hard for like a single parent in that aspect to like like reinforce a lot of things that are being learned in school, or even just holding like the child responsible. So I know it's not as easy as it is for some families as it is for others, which is why I don't have any kids, because I refuse to do that by myself. So.
So I'm gonna say this, and it might get me killed, but whatever. I think it's a lot more insidious. I think the reason that you focus on this being, or the reason that this is deemed such a black male issue, is because interest in the United States to imprison black men because they provide more of the hard labor. If you look, a lot of America's industry, a lot of our industrial revolution was built off of the backs of manufacturers, right? And workers got unfairly compensated for a long time, and then when they unionized and whatnot, you saw these things that you saw American progress. Now America offshores a lot of its manufacturing. A lot of the manufacturing that we still do in the United States is done by prison labor. And an example of that is a company. You look up Unicor, UNICOR. Go to unicor.gov, and you'll see these guys make everything from military improvised installations to school buses to beds. Like, they make everything, and you can use a lot of those things because they're labor intensive. Black male bodies are a little bit stronger and more densely boned than female bodies. I honestly think this is a labor issue, and I think that a black male prisoner is more valuable than, not that in terms of labor production, than a black female prisoner. There's still things that black and brown people can do, but I really think that it's much more insidious. And I think this whole system is geared to get black people back into this system of almost enslavement, because the goalposts keep moving in terms of education. Only a few of us are going to end up educated, and if you can't educate, then you can't provide for your family. You can't provide for your family, then you provide in ways that are illegal. That means crime. You get caught up in crime, you then go to jail. It is a cycle that is designed to feed into that school to prison pipeline. And I know this sounds off the wall, but I just encourage you, go look up unicor.gov.
I think it sounds real. It's just that I think it's insidious. I'm sorry, I don't know big words like you. At very, very top levels, I don't think a kindergarten teacher is thinking, oh man, this prison's kind of running out of prisoners. Let me start putting these black kids in trouble. But I think it's so ingrained, unfortunately. Like, it's too ingrained into everybody. And that's the problems. We talk about this all the time, like the portrayal of black men in TV and everything, the news, whatever. All of that still formulates for you to think
that black men are dangerous.
Bad. Right. And so it all just still feeds, and of course feeds that cycle, which I understand. Maybe there should be some kind of education for teachers and professors on this cycle and like what the result is of you just putting this kid in timeout every day, like whatever it is you're doing or how you run your classroom. Like, there should be some kind of education on that, I think.
Yeah.
And I guess that's why you're saying black teachers is important, because maybe they get it. Maybe, because you can't even count on that all the time.
Yeah, you can't even count on that. I don't think it's exclusively a male thing. I just think that males get talked about more.
It's a lot of pressure on males, period, too. Like, I think everybody does.
Males just get talked about more, but I think when you look at the statistics, like, I think either they're pretty much on par, or like in a lot of situations, like the black girls are probably a little bit more worse off statistically.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we just tend to focus on the males because as a black community, we always tend to focus on the males. Like, whatever it is that the males got going on, black men, black children, whatever it is that they got going on, we generally tend to focus on them. And as you can see in like more recent movements, like there's been like a real large push for black women and their experiences and black girls and their experiences to get talked about more, because for so long, all we did was talk about what was going on with black men and black males. So I think that has a lot to do with it in terms of why it's always such a male issue. In regard to conspiracy theory, Dez's point about there being some sort of insidious plot to send all the black people back to Attica, it's probably one of the least ridiculous things that he said in terms of a conspiracy.
None of the things I say are ridiculous. They're all rooted.
No, they're all. Some of them shits are absolutely ridiculous.
I didn't call white people Lotus.
That's not ridiculous.
Locusts.
That's not ridiculous either.
Oh, okay.
They're actual insects. Okay.
One of those things are ridiculous. If you look at what locusts do and what white people do, they're very much the same thing. I do think that we talk about the system of white supremacy, right? And people are always like, what is white supremacy? What is white supremacy? What is white? It's like a system of things that is being done to the benefit of white people. And there is nothing that you can do in America that doesn't have some form of system in place to benefit white people. And that works most especially when talking about school. I told y'all earlier, 2% of black males are teachers in America, right? So that leaves like 98% of teachers. And you know that it can't be more than 20 or 30% that are black women, right? I'm being very
generous.
I'll say 20%. So it can't be more than 20% of all the teachers in America that are black women. So you take your 2% of black men and your 20% approximately black women, you still have 68% of teachers that are white men or white women. And they grow up in a white supremacist society where they believe, where that society and that system teaches them that black kids are inferior, that black kids aren't disciplined enough, that black kids can't learn as much as white kids, that black kids aren't as well behaved as white kids, that black kids can't do math and can't read. And you have all the statistical data that sort of reinforces that point. We're reading below grade level, we're doing math below grade level, we make the least amount of money, we're less likely to buy houses, where we don't have no wealth. Like, you read all of this stuff, and all of this is just part of the system. It gets reinforced into you every day. So when you're a teacher, a white teacher, and you see a little black kid, all these little unconscious things are in the back of your mind. That kid probably doesn't have enough discipline. That kid doesn't do enough work. That kid's not going to do this. That kid's not going to do that. And that sort of shit comes out. Okay, well, we can't help this kid behave any better, so we're going to suspend them. Not, well, maybe we need to talk to them or whatever. We're going to suspend them. Well, this kid comes from a bad neighborhood. He doesn't seem to be adjusting well. We're going to suspend him. This kid is having trouble with the work, but all the other kids are able to do the work. Well, he's not interested in learning because he's too interested in, he cares more about what he's wearing in school than what he's actually doing in school. We're going to suspend him. Mm-hmm. And that shit just keeps going. It keeps building up. One of the kids around Brown was talking about, he didn't go to school. Avery says, why didn't you go to school? I was either skipping or I was suspended. Like, and any statistic that you read about school attendance will tell you that going to school and attending every single day, or attending as many days as possible, is like key to you graduating. Mm-hmm. Because you can't learn anything if you're not at school, and you can't be at school if you keep getting suspended, right? Like, you just, like, all this stuff, it's like all these little things that build on top of each other that create this problem. And then Tunde, we'll go to you for the last comment.
I just wanted to look up some quick data real quick, because 20 sounds super high to me. Reading this article on the Atlantic. So in 2016, 2015, total black teachers, male and female, 7%.
There you go. 7%
population.
Well,
and then,
that was real high.
Of that 20%, over 60% are concentrated in the South, and the lowest is in the West.
So you're saying so you're saying the total amount of black teachers in all of America is only 7%?
Yeah, and of that 7% is vastly
60% of that 7% is in the South.
Yeah, which makes sense because that's the majority of black people in this country.
Yeah, they live in the South. So there, 93% of your kids are 93% of teachers are white, and
or it's not black.
White or not black, and if you live anywhere outside of the South, there's a good chance that your child will never see a black male teacher or a black teacher at all.
Yep.
That isn't a football coach or a track coach or some shit like that. So
you need to have like that, and now you know. They go across.
So, all right. Well, I wish we had. I know this is a heavy episode. Sorry for you. to get halfway through it. I didn't even get my drink, so that's my bad. But
I'm about to say drinks. It's like I forgot the time difference.
yeah,
Damn,
it's
it's early.
12:45 here.
Yeah, it's 12:45 over here.
It's definitely drinking time here. Definitely drinking time. All right, well, that's our episode. Yeah, NWAP, get your mimosas. Niggas of the podcast. I'll let y'all next week. Peace.
Peace.
Peace.